Hey, this is Jim Horn, and welcome to another episode of Black and White Photography. Today, I've got with me Steve Dell. He's a well known workshop teacher, lecturer, and former Camera Club president in Tucson, Arizona. Steve has traveled all over the world, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. He has put together a great program on travel photography. And I thought rather than continuing our black and white series, we'd interrupt it a little bit for something just a little bit different. Anyway, I want to bring Steve on, and here we go. We're going to talk about travel photography and how to get the best photographs when you're out and about.
I bet on
Okay.
TV, but not like this.
Steve and I are old friends, as I said in the introduction, and we're doing something a little bit different for this YouTube /podcast. Steve has graciously said he would come on and wanted to talk about, or actually, I wanted him to talk about something he is very skilled at, besides being a phenomenal photographer, is travel photography. How are you doing, Steve?
I am doing well. I'm waiting for the weather down here in Tucson to cool off, but we're still in triple digits.
Oh, is that right? Wow. We're
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm here in Michigan, so you can see the phenomenon of the internet. Anyway, travel photography has become more and more important these days. More and more people are traveling, and Steve is, as I said in the interview, has lectured all over the state of Arizona, gives workshops and so forth. So, Steve, why don't I let you take it away on the travel photography?
Okay. Well, Jim, thank you for inviting me. Yes, I've done quite a bit of travel photography over the last 10 or 12 years and whatnot. So, what I wanted to do this afternoon is to share some ideas and things of that nature about the whole topic of travel photography. So, today we're going to copy or talk about things you should understand, those things that you might need. I'll have lots of tips and guidelines. We'll talk about various techniques in the field and obviously, what should you be shooting? So let's start off. So you should understand first a definition of travel photography. It's just a subcategory of photography. It documents an area's landscape, people, cultures, customs, history. Yeah, it's a great way of doing architectural and street photography. And I am especially drawn to it with my love of architectural photography. So, with that, let's go ahead and talk about some ideas here. Travel photography is certainly gratifying, but it is also very, very challenging for everyone trying to do it. You know, you're constantly on the move. You've got time constraints. This is not like going to Moab to shoot arches or things of this nature. You've got these kind of constraints. You have weather, time of day. Obviously, you'd love to be there during the golden hour, but if you're on a tour, you might be there at noon. So you're not going to be able to shoot what you want when you want. So it's important to understand that going in. And you're certainly constrained by the amount of equipment that you can bring because either weight restrictions, self imposed or imposed by airlines. You've got different powers overseas than you do, and you may or may not have internet access. So let's explore some ideas and some problems that you might encounter and then how to deal with them. So here's a situation, man, that light is really harsh and contrasting. Little bit of help in post processing. We now have kind of a cute little welcome to Arizona shot. Here, it's terribly hazy. But with our software, we can take a throwaway and make it a nice picture going into a tunnel. Lots and lots of people throughout, especially if you're traveling in Europe. And the tools in Photoshop now allow you to selectively remove them and still have your image look quite nice. Here's a situation where You've got a beautiful building, but you've got repair scaffolding on there. You either can move to another part of the building and shoot it from another angle, or in post, you can go ahead and try to remove it. Here's a situation where you don't have the time or you refuse to make the time to get the best shot. This is a gorgeous harbor, but I think this one is an award winner. You went back at another time to be able to do that. Here's a situation in California. What happens if I changed lens to focus in a little bit more on the mountain and the light and the foreground? Here, you either use a zoom or you change lenses. I didn't bring a tripod when I shot that. This is what the picture should have looked like. It took a lot to straighten it out and get it sharp because I didn't bring a tripod. So, things that you might consider doing: start out earlier in the morning or stay later. Obviously, software is going to help. Shoot the items that are closer to you. If you can do it, shoot after the people have left. Move to another vantage point. If your travel companion is not a photographer, send he or she off shopping and you can go do what you want. Shoot wide with the intention of cropping if you don't change the lens, or change the lens. Put your camera on something solid or bring a tripod. So, uh, wise words: always carry a camera because it's tough to shoot a picture without one. Jay Maisel. So here are some things that you might need. Obviously, you're going to need camera body, lenses, and accessories. So wide angle lenses give you those sweeping shots. And here's some information about various millimeter settings. But these are great for architectural and street photography. Mid-range, this is what I call a walkabout lens. These are marvelous for everyday shooting. And if you're only going to bring one lens, these kinds of things will work very well for you. In addition, if you can bring a telephoto lens, that will allow you to target details, give you some interesting close ups, but it's not a requirement. And again, here are some ideas about walkabout all in one zooms. They might not be the best quality lens, but if you can only carry one, these will work very well for you. So, other things to consider: you might carry an extra camera body so you don't have to worry about changing lenses. Realistically, that second camera body is going to be your cell phone. And this allows you to take test shots, get shots that you might not be able to get. I've been in churches where they say you cannot shoot with a DSLR, but they're happy to have you shoot with a cell phone. There's no reason for that prohibition, but having the cell phone will certainly help you get that shot. Think of extra precautions. Take pictures of the serial number of your equipment just in case you need to provide proof of ownership if anything is stolen. Ideas about a support system. I'm going to quickly go through this. Obviously, a tripod or a monopod works very, very well, but many times it is either inconvenient or realistically, it's forbidden to use. So then a bean bag, a Ziploc bag full of rice would certainly work for that kind of situation. Another good idea is to bring the lens hood designed specifically for your lens. It'll minimize the amount of stray light. It also gives a little bit of protection should you drop your camera. The realistic thing's going to happen: you're going to break the hood and not break the lens, which is very, very important. I don't use UV haze or skylight so-called protective filters anymore. I don't want to put a $30 piece of glass on a $700 lens. There's no reason for that anymore. Years ago, that made sense, not in today's situation. So this is what's in my camera bag. I shoot with the old Olympus system, which is now called OM systems. I have their top of the line OM1 with a wide angle, a couple of mid range telephotos, and a long telephoto. I always carry extra batteries, memory cards. I have chargers, most importantly, removable camera straps, and power cables. I do carry a travel tripod, something like this. This can work very well, especially if you cannot carry the larger tripod with you. So, some ideas, some tips and guidelines for your travel photography. Think about what you need to do before you go. How are you going to set up your camera? Once you get there, what do you need to do? Then we'll talk about certainly the process of capturing your image, and we'll talk quite a bit about composition. So, before you go, you need to do some research. So, you can go to the University of Google or Wikipedia State College. Obviously, local libraries and honestly used bookstores are phenomenal sources of information. So if you're going to Monte Carlo and you can't find enough good information, you'll find a used book about it. Certainly, travel guides and tour operators are very helpful too. Find out one before you go, what are the must see locations? The churches, the synagogues, the galleries, fountains, statues. How is water used in the city that you're going to? And also find out if you need a data plan for your cell phone. Sometimes, if you're going to be taking pictures with your cell phone, you're using up data. And so, if you're in Europe, that might cost more than if you were shooting in the United States. So, check with your carrier well before you go. Worst case, you'll buy a month of coverage for overseas, cost you somewhere between $20 to $40 per phone. So, other things to do before you go: practice. Shoot with friends in a cafe. You'll be spending time in cafes, coffee shops, places to eat. You want to record your meals and things of this nature. It also, you're going to have some tough lighting for many of those. And realistically, you're probably not carrying a flash. So practice at your local Starbucks or your favorite coffee shop for that kind of work before you go. Um, Go to outdoor events or parades, shoot from a variety of locations, see what you're comfortable with. Do you want to put a longer lens and be a little further back? Now you're going to be dealing with people's heads and shoulders. But if you're shooting from the front, you might be too close to the action. So, but if you practice, now you'll know. So when you get to Spain and there is a religious event, I have a pretty good idea where you want to photograph it from. So, more things about practice. Shoot street scenes and interiors here before you leave. Practice with sunrises and sunsets. Again, you'll play around with a variety of camera settings, your auto, your program, shutter, and aperture priority. I'm not a big fan of manual anymore. When I first started shooting, I did, but the computer software in our cameras is so good. Any of these other modes will help you get very good photographs. So when you're setting your camera up, you've just flown from wherever you are to Europe. You've had anywhere from 4 to 9 hours of time change. Change the time in your camera. This will help keep your pictures in order. I was on a cruise where I went through 4 different time zones throughout Europe, and I was getting pictures that were not set properly because I forgot to do this. Other things to do. Clean your lens, charge your batteries, make sure you have extra batteries, your charger, and most importantly, the power cable. And you're probably going to need a power connection adapter. If you're staying in a upscale hotel, more than likely they will have power converters for you. But if you are staying in the country somewhere or staying in a hostel or a B&B, you may or may not have the power necessary to charge your batteries and download your pictures if that's what you need to do. Check your memory card. Make sure you have two or three extras. The worst part is to have something fail. You've spent $10,000 on a vacation. You can't afford a $50 memory card to fail. And again, make sure you are setting your camera to capture the highest quality possible. I shoot high quality RAW. If you're going to shoot JPEG, there should be settings there for the highest quality. Give yourself the best opportunity for success. Once you get to your location, again, be understanding of cultural sensitivities and laws. Do you need permission to take certain buildings or military installations? I was in Auckland, New Zealand, and I went to take a picture of a battleship, and it turned out you're not allowed to do that. Well, I gave him the roll. I was shooting film, and I gave him the roll of film, and we went about our way. But find out beforehand what you can do. Obviously, be respectful of the local people. If you can get into more than a commercial buy and sell relationship with people at the hotels and cafes, that's great. But get to know the locals. If you take a picture of someone as part of a picture, and that you can take your camera, show them to them. If you volunteer to send the person a copy of that picture, make sure that you do that, because the next time another photographer asks that same individual, that person will remember, well, Steve didn't send it to me, or Steve did. I will be friendly and kind of go from there. So just live up to your commitments that you make with the local people. Obviously, be careful with yourself and your gear. Don't take too much. Do you need the long telephoto? Do you need, and or honestly, will you actually use a flash? I have a couple flashes for my camera that are sitting in my second camera bag that I don't travel with. So, again, once you get there, continue doing your research. These are some locations. I have found getting lost and finding my way back to, and for my case, typically a ship, was a great way to explore things. Um, Confirm locally that these must see locations that you thought about before you left still are. And is there anything else? Take notes. If you need to, consider getting GPS tracking software. It helps to pinpoint where you are. In putting this presentation together, you're going to see notations. This was taken in Barcelona. This was taken someplace. A lot of that is I was able to go to the map where the picture was taken to get the correct spelling and to verify exactly where it is. The GPS software, it works very well for that. So capturing the image. These are my ideas. They're not cast in stone, but these have worked well for me. Pre-visualize your shot. Um, Experiment a little bit with composition. Move a couple steps right or left. Play around with different exposure. Your first shots should be words. Don't be afraid to take pictures of signs. They will help you remember. Then your next pictures begin the story that you want to tell. So this is very important. With digital, there is no incremental cost to shoot more pictures. So take loads and loads of images if you will not be returning there anytime soon. I shot 10,000 pictures recently in Greenland. I don't think I'm going to be in Greenland for any time in the rest of my life. So I have now a lot of pictures that I can work from. Plan your final shots to complete the story that you're trying to tell. Um, Understand what your output is going to be. Are you going to print it? Are you going to post it on Facebook or Instagram? Are you going to print it and put it into a scrapbook? Will you put it into a slideshow, or is it just going to be shown on your cell phone? Just understand that knowing the anticipated output can be very helpful. In terms of capturing the image, ask yourself, what's the intent? What will it look like? What could it look like? More importantly, what should it look like? And your camera settings are important. If you're shooting a sunrise or a sunset, you probably do not want your color balance on auto or daylight. Cloudy or shade might work a little bit better. In this picture here, I shot this on auto. Nice enough picture, but this is what I actually saw, and I switched my color balance to cloudy to get the sunrise, the colors I was really seeing. So experiment with composition and exposure. What can you do inside the camera? What happens if you move left or right, up and down, and those kinds of things you can play around because it's not costing you more to take more pictures. What about complex lighting situations? Do you know what a backlight image is? And then how do you deal with it? Do you shoot it with a flash or do you just overexpose it by two stops? I typically will do the latter because I'm not carrying a flash with me. What do you do in a dark cathedral? I shoot on very high ISO, and I have set my camera now on auto ISO, and I have my range between 200 and 6400. That range, I can capture the bulk of what I want and have noise levels in the image that I can certainly manage with. If you're going to shoot a long exposure, let's say in a cathedral, either shoot it off a tripod or use the beanbag, lean up against a wall or a pew or something of that nature if you can. So here's a situation. This is Sagrada Familia, the Gaudi church in Barcelona. And there is the way that I finally was able to get it. I got it straight and I got it bright enough for the picture that as I wanted it. So more about capturing our images. Again, shoot your first pictures to be words, signs, maps, landmarks. These will set your scene. So as we look at these, this is a Bryce Canyon. This is on the way in. This was a poster up in Gaspé in northern Quebec province, and these other two were just nearby where we could easily take photographs. This was the map of one of the first cruises that we did, starting in Barcelona, going up to the northern Mediterranean, and then sailing back to Barcelona in the southern part of there. But it gives an idea of where you are. So now, don't forget to capture funny or unusual signs. There's a lot of weird things in other parts of the country. This point nose to curb with this peculiar spelling was in Australia. The life's too short to drink bad coffee, I believe, was in Holland. Give way is all throughout Europe. And the put the fun between your legs has to do with a bicycle rental store. And just a couple of other funny things that I saw. This is a restaurant and I believe it's in Belgium, where you have good things inside and rain and bad weather on the outside. So this picture on the left is for a barber, and this is the German word for exit. And of course, this is probably most important. We serve only the finest Australian wines. You did bring some, didn't you? So your next shot should begin to tell your story. So you're going to capture a variety of establishing shots. You can use wide angle for a sense of place, focus in on close-ups to reveal important details, get pictures of people and streets, and most importantly, change your orientation. The best time to shoot a vertical is after you've shot a horizontal of the same subject. Shooting panoramas is another way to capture wide or very tall things. So here is an area in the central coast of Australia where we were eventually going to the beach, but we were going out to this lighthouse. And so we were able to get the signs as we were walking and so forth. Again, get loads of pictures if you're not coming back. Again, will these be printed or sold or put on the web? So think about this. If you don't know what you're doing and you break the rules, you are considered a goober. However, if you know the rules and you break them, consider yourself an artist. I'm now going to preach. To consult the rules of composition before taking a picture is like consulting the laws of gravity before taking a walk. These rules are deduced from established fact. They are products of your own personal reflection. Weston, a phenomenal Western photographer. So let's talk a little bit about composition. Now you're going to put your pictures together. Review the background. Make sure things are not cluttered, chaotic. You don't have any things in the foreground, or you got poles growing out of someone's head. Adjust the f-stop if you're shooting on aperture priority to either blur or sharpen the background. A wide open aperture, a low f number, f2.8, f4, will give a blurry background. F11, F16 will get a sharp background. So here was a situation of patience. There were a half a dozen other tourists at this castle in Portugal. They happened to be people on the same cruise ship. So I ultimately took pictures of them with their iPhones, and I said, now, if you will step to the side and keep people out of this image for just a few seconds, I was able to do that. And then in post, we fixed it up a little bit and made it more into a panorama. Um, Keep your horizon as close to flat as you possibly can. Here's a situation in Monte Carlo. I wasn't paying attention. Fortunately, it was easy enough to straighten out the ocean and get the building to look proper. Same thing here. This is Peggy's Cove outside of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Nice looking picture, but realistically, it's a little bit off. My ocean is a little bit sideways, and now my lighthouse is in the proper straight up and down perspective. Now, can you make the picture better by cropping? So here's a nice enough a lake picture. Someone's on vacation sailing around, but I think this one works a little bit better. I didn't need all that foreground water. I wanted to concentrate more on the boaters. What happens if we change from landscape to portrait mode? Interesting flower, but I think this is a little bit better, getting rid of what is not necessary and focusing on the beauty of this red flower. And then what about either removing or de-emphasizing in post-processing less important elements? Here is a church in France, as I recall. These areas at the very bottom are designed to keep people from driving their vehicles up to the base of this red door. Well, that was easy enough to remove. And then here is a confessional, but I was able to highlight and emphasize other aspects of the picture, bring more of a sense of place, getting more texture to the background wall, because this image is what I saw. The previous picture is what the camera captured. And what happens if we change the angle of view? Here's a delightful picture. In fact, this one is here at Sabino Canyon in Tucson. Nice enough picture. But then I saw the smaller waterfall in the foreground, and I focused in on that. And I think I have a more interesting image here than the large one that you can get very lost in. So the rule of thirds, or as my wife refers to them as the suggestion of thirds, possible to keep your image off center. Create a little bit of artistic tension. This will allow your viewer to explore the image with leading lines. You can follow the motion. If you're shooting something that it is moving, give it some room for the action to move into or out of the frame. In our culture, left to right is typically the perceived motion. So here is a place in France, but if you notice when I put a rule of thirds grid over it, and then we intersect the PowerPoints, if you will, these are the important aspects of the image. Maybe the doorway in the center would be another place, but this one demonstrates pretty effectively what you can do in framing up your picture. Includes some, but not a lot of foreground. These foreground elements, the individual on the left and the people sitting in the coffee shop, balance the image out and give a sense of place throughout the image. Same thing here. This is the casino in Monte Carlo. I was shooting it because there were so many Bentleys and Rolls Royces in front. But I think having these there gives a sense of place. And then what about using natural framing elements? In this photograph in Monte Carlo, having these parallel doubled walls really helps focus in on the altar, on the ceilings, and things of this nature. And it provides natural framing elements and lends itself to a very symmetrical image. Um, I try to get my horizon either a third from the top or a third from the bottom. So here I have the upper third is the sky, the middle third is the harbor and the buildings, and then the foreground third is the water. Similarly, here this is the Civitavecchia harbor in outside of Rome. Again, a third of sky, a third of water, and a third of the port itself. Try not to bullseye your image. So here I moved around because as I, in my mind, laid the rule of thirds grid over it, now my C stack is positioned in a way that the reader and viewer can look through the image and see it quite effectively. And the idea of leading lines, I'm going to add some arrows to this next picture, and you can see as we go down these streets and walkways how the leading lines bring you to the end or to the center part of the picture. This is in Sicily. In this one here, you have a combination of the jagged rocks and the surf coming in, pounding these rocks, and this really helps direct your eye around the image to see it all. Sometimes we can use neutral density filters, and they can be very helpful to add a little bit of drama. All I did there is took the same picture and I darkened the sky just a little bit on the top, but left the rest of the image at its normal exposure. Now, we went through all of these rules. When it makes sense, and you'll know because you can tell, break the rules when it makes sense. This top image is perfectly symmetrical, only has two or three colors in it, but it still works because of the contrast, the textures. The picture of the monastery here in Tucson also works because of its drama of the black background and the spotlights on the church itself. Here is the Taj Mahal. We've all seen these pictures before, but if this picture was off center, it wouldn't feel right. This is perfectly symmetrical, and this one, it lends itself to doing it that way. So, now strategies for timing. If necessary, shoot a quick picture in program mode or use your iPhone for that purpose. And then refine your strategies. I typically shoot aperture priority because I want to control my depth of field, but these others will work certainly very well for you too. Shoot from other angles. If it's not exactly what you want, move a little bit, move up or down. Now, as we age, getting down might be okay, getting up might require some help, but shooting from a low angle can really emphasize some very dramatic things for you. Um, if on a failsafe, shoot with exposure bracketing. Shoot two stops over, expose regular, and two stops under, and then put them together. And you can now shoot with various depths of field. Make a list of what you think you're going to need before when you're doing your research. Study the scene, different angles. When the subject is right, if that is possible, it's not always going to be possible. Start out early, stay late, and then shoot verticals and horizontals, and then shoot a variety of cropped orientation. Everything does not have to be square or 8 by 10. You can shoot a variety of different orientations too. Um, Take time to ask locals to be part of your architectural shot. Take their portrait. Again, you can review the picture on your LCD screen. If it is difficult in harsh light, there are ways around that also. Make sure your image is sharp. You probably won't be getting back there anytime soon. Keep your gear clean. I carry a bulb blower with me and a couple of cleaning cloths just to keep dust off of my lenses. Take notes. And worst case, take a picture of a sign or a plaque. This will help you jog your memory, 3 weeks later when you're looking at your pictures on the computer. Take care of yourself and your equipment. Life is uncertain. Eat dessert first. You'll see what I mean with this in just a minute. So some techniques. Wide angle will allow you to capture more of the scene, create more interest front to back and side to side and so forth. Here's a shot in Aix-de-Provence. We got an entire city. We have the bikes in the foreground. We have street signs and interesting buildings in the background. Here's a wide angle shooting up of a apartment complex in Barcelona. Shooting panoramas. Typically, when I'm shooting a panorama, I want to shoot somewhere. I'm going to overlap 20 to 50%. I shoot everything in RAW. I do not shoot JPEG. I do not use auto white balance. I typically am going to use either daylight or cloudy. And this way, the white balance doesn't change as I shoot from left to right. Don't use a polarizer or an ND grad because as you move across, the light is going to change and you'll get peculiar streaking marks across it. If you want a resulting landscape or wide panorama, shoot your images vertically. And this will give you the maximum way of being able, once you've stitched it together, to deal with any degradation of the top and bottom. You've got plenty of room. Similarly, if you're shooting a tall architecture, shoot in horizontally for that. So here are some examples. This is Big Sur. This is St. Peter's Square. This is like 10 shots put together. And a lot of the foreground had loads of distortion, but I had plenty of room because I was shooting this picture vertically in my camera to have a resulting horizontal picture. Similarly, here in Valencia, loads of people love the buildings and whatnot. This was a vertical panorama that I eventually put into a square orientation. And here is at the World Trade Center in New York City. This was taken, I think there were 9 pictures going from bottom to top, and then we kind of straightened them out. But this is a fascinating train station in New York City. High dynamic range is a technique where you will take a number of images and then in post processing put them together. You get better range of tonality than shooting individual shots. The benefits are to reveal more accurately what you saw, to represent the widest range of intensity levels, and to reproduce the details in the highlights and the shadows. So here is a church in Germany. This was the normal exposure. I then shot a picture 2 stops under and 2 stops over. So I captured all the detail. And there is the resulting picture. You notice there is detail in the glass windows that we didn't see before. That's what I started with, and that's where I finished. So here's some examples. Um, Waterfall in Australia, getting loads of detail. Watch what happens to the ceiling up here. Here, this is ruins in Barcelona, um, Glacier Bay. Watch what happens um, to the sky. We have sky. We have tremendous detail now here on the Oregon coast. This is another shot from Gaudi's Casabatlo in Barcelona. Loads of detail. Got the thing straightened out. This is in Russia. Loads of detail. We're able to get a lot of the texture and detail that I was not able to get on the ceiling using this technique. A great camera can't make a great photograph any more than a typewriter can write a great novel. It's a photograph is about depth of feeling, not depth of field. So we've done all of this planning. Let's get out there and shoot some. So what do we want to shoot? So we'll look at shooting foods and feasts. So we'll talk about presentation and the preparation, the personal interaction. Maybe the chef has come to your table. We'll shoot people, young and old and in between. Architecture. One of the things that I enjoy, in addition to shooting old and new, is shooting that situation where you have a new building in between two older buildings. How is water used in a given area? So you're going to be shooting things like harbors and piers and rivers and lakes, fountains, water features, things of that nature. These are fun things to shoot. Remember what I said about dessert? Well, so don't forget you're going to be enjoying some fine dining. So capture some of those things too. Um, my wife took a cooking class on the ship, and it was to do the on the left hand side, the man in the white coat is the chef, and this was a plating exercise, and this was the meal on the right, and a capture of the students together. Just people doing normal things. This lady in the upper left is in the Yukon, and we have some various characters all throughout Europe. This is my wife with her shopping companion in Alaska, and some other characters I've met along the way. Churches, people, lovely stairway leading up to an artist studio. This particular castle, as it works out, is actually in Houston, Texas. A man with his son and brother-in-law built this. This is now a tourist attraction, and we were able to see it. It's just a beautiful facility. But here's how water is being used. Various ports. Some of the large yachts are fascinating. How do people get around? With buses and taxis and motorcycles and luxury cars and luxury yachts. How do people do business? We love going to markets, shooting on boulevards, taking pictures of money, watching people bargain when they're buying things. So a tour bus in Monaco, loads of motorcycles all throughout Spain. This particular yacht um, cost $1 million per linear foot and is 450 feet long. So this yacht is just under $500 million. It was ported in Monte Carlo. But markets here with the lovely flowers and some other fruit markets and things of this nature. This last picture is many bottles of beer on the wall, and the butcher and his customer probably bargaining a little bit. At nighttime, shooting moonlight, neon lights, shooting cathedrals and temples if you're able to shoot ceremonies and rituals, and then just the natural landscapes and cityscapes. Don't be afraid to take a picture of what it might be thought of as a cliche. If you've never taken it, it's new for you. So here are some sunset shots. This was taken from a cruise ship. This church in Spain is massive, and the only way to shoot it was to shoot it from the ship. I was up in front of it and couldn't get anywhere close to this view. And just some lovely street scenes and alleys and things of that nature. And then some other things that might not quite be as lovely, but it's part of your tour. These were high-rise slums on the upper left. A wall graphic was in France, and then just some other toned pictures for to capture a sense of place and age. Things to do every time. Um, Take advice of the people of the locals for restaurants. Purchase a souvenir, ride a bus, use your cell phone and take pictures of where you go. If you can, either take written notes or keep a travel journal on your voice recorder. Explore safe neighborhoods and don't be afraid to send a postcard home. Final thoughts. Add to this list. Don't subtract from it. As you grow as a photographer, you're going to be shooting outside your comfort zone, and as you do that, you'll find that your photography is going to improve. Share your trip images. 2 to 4 images in each category should be adequate. Think about putting together a video slideshow. Uh, as we put it all together and create a slideshow, if if you have been to Europe, you have been on what is affectionately known as the ABC tour. That's the amazingly boring castle or another bloody cathedral. And what I want to show you next is my ABC tour of amazingly beautiful cathedrals.
And here we go. Steve is going to give us a little movie presentation. So for all those people on YouTube, I think you're going to enjoy this. Take care, and thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.